How'd everyone do? Good breakout sessions?
Excellent. Excellent. Brandon, Gabriella and I were talking, and I love what they're doing at Lettuce. And I think it'd be great to have a session that focuses on, benefits and tools for workers, right? Like,
Sure.
what can we do to help workers globally? What are the tools that are out there? How do platforms use them? How do organizations think about more in kind of newer kinds of support? I'm sure, I don't know, Gabrielle, if you're interested in that, and I'm sure McLean from MBO would be great. Actually, you know what I might do? I might like call on you, Steve Rader, to lead that panel because I just remember back, at that great session. And Adam, you put it on, Adam Moorhead. What was it, like 4 years ago? We did that session in Houston at the Top Coder Open around kind of global workers that Steve, you ran. It was so fantastic. It was just amazing to kind of have freelancers talk about their success and things like that. So yeah, maybe we could architect some of that stuff. It'd be fun to get that point of view involved.
Great. This is the time where we ask anybody new on the call to raise their hand, introduce themselves. I think we have a lot of new people, so let's try to keep it short today. Maybe just 15 seconds, and you can also drop your information into the chat and we'll share this out afterwards. So anybody new on the call? Luis.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. Yeah, first time joining, but I am an account executive with Gigs AI. So nice to meet everyone and looking forward to joining many more events as well.
Welcome. Michael.
Hi, everybody. I've been meaning to join this call for ages and thought I'd start the new year off right by doing so. Glad to see a few familiar faces. I just recently left WorkSuite, where I was building the compliance engine for their global talent community. I've since joined eTeam to build out an SOW capability, which includes ICSOW. So very glad to be here.
Welcome. Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Here's Lisa. I'm on the education field for a little over 12 years and recent graduate of a program focusing on organizational development and technology. And most recently, I've worked as an implementation manager with supporting different curriculums and softwares that support students learning how to read and adult learners, and looking forward to connecting and learning with all of you. So thank you.
Welcome. Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm not on camera. My name is Sarah Musgrove. I'm the CEO and founder of The Bench. We have a remote talent network of just over 700 freelancers that supports the marketing, advertising, and events agents industry.
Welcome. Thanks for joining. Humberto.
Hi, everybody. I'm Humberto, work on product and platform for Gigster. Looking forward to meeting all and collaborating.
All right. Ashley.
Hey, everybody. Ashley Osborne from Fiverr. I sit on our brand team. John invited me about an hour ago, so I don't know if anyone beats me as newest member here, but really excited to learn and join these calls in the future.
Yeah, welcome, Ashley. Mahmood.
Hello, everyone. I'm the founder and CEO of workhint.com. It's a SaaS to manage on-demand workforce. Like we have free onboarding, workflow management, and global pay features. It's first time here. Would love to connect with anyone interested to work on projects, and very excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, great to connect with you this week. Sunita.
Hi. Sorry about not showing my face, but it's deep in the night for me, so I'm not in the frame to show my face. So I'm an OD consultant based in India, Mumbai, and I'm fascinated by open talent. I've been reading about what y'all are doing, and I'm passionate about ecosystem design because I think everything stems around the design of the ecosystem. So fascinated to meet new people, new faces, and learning every day. That's me.
Right. Anna.
Yes, hello everyone. This is Anna Moldovan from Romania. I work with Kickster as program operations into recruitment. And to say something about me, what just came into my mind was I think we can change the world with one hire at a time. And the fact that we do this globally and we give equal opportunities around the globe, I think we're right on that mission. And I was following the lead of my colleagues that already been members of this group, Val, and I saw Humberto joining today, so happy to join the team.
All right. Welcome. Anybody else new that we missed? All right.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I
Oh.
don't have a raised hand button, but Isaac Slavitt, one of the co-founders of Driven Data. We're a platform for data science, open innovation competitions, and we focus on social impact and scientific challenges. So first time on this call, happy to be here.
All right, welcome, Isaac. Let's see. Anybody else? Trying to look at the screen. Too many pages.
My name is Paulina Santana. I do partnerships at WorkSome. We are a external workforce management solution, and we help companies do independent contractor compliance as well. I'm thrilled to be here and looking forward to connecting.
All right.
Yeah,
Welcome.
I guess I can do one more. So I'm not new here, but wearing a different company banner. So maybe that translates as new. So I was at Gigster. Yeah, so I was at Gigster leading up product and research there. I've recently switched to a company called Crowdbotics, leading up research and innovation here. But we're building some tools that let you kind of use natural language to go into product requirements and project requirements and manage code, which is super, super beneficial for distributed workers and freelancers to help them kind of like optimize their time. So really happy to still be part of this.
And you have the best home office. We all know that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, a couple announcements from me. And we have a new podcast with the CEO and co-founder of Andela that you should all check out. I'll put it in the chat here in a sec with Jeremy Johnson. And then before we run out of time, our next community call is going to be the 15th of February, and it's going to be with Harvard Business School professor Chris Stanton, who's going to teach his UST case study on UST's journey with open talent. So make sure you put that one on your calendar. It should be great. John, I don't know if you want to make any comments on that one.
Yeah, no, I'm super stoked. I mean, this is one that, UST has done such great work. And for those of you guys who've read the book, obviously they're in the scale section of the book. And then Chris really did a much deeper dive academically and wrote this really, really great case study. It's, called UST's adoption of open talent. I think it's going to really be helpful for all of us as we try to scale this into enterprises in a big way. So hope you guys can come, and obviously at HBS class is all about Q&A, and so hopefully, and maybe, hey Brandon, maybe we can see if we could get the case out. I don't know what the rights are, but it'd be great to get the case study out to the teams beforehand so we could really run it like a class.
Yep, we'll definitely try to do that. And I'll put the link to the case study in the chat here, and you can purchase it if you'd like, of course. John, give us an update on the book.
Yeah, so the book's going great. I mean, I told everybody earlier, for everybody, it's hit 2 bestseller lists, number 6 business book on USA Today and number 21 on our hardcover nonfiction Publishers Weekly. So super excited, but this isn't my book, it's your book. And this organization, this community has really made all this happen, right? Like all the great conversations we've had, all the great, dialogue, just being a part of this. It's your book. So really, really appreciate it. I want to give a special shout out to Rich. Rich, thanks a lot for posting your photo with the book. I heard, through kind of journeying around how do we expand this market, I guess if you take a picture of something with your face, like a book with your face, that the LinkedIn algorithm actually accelerates the number of people that you reach by a factor of 10 times. So if you guys have read the book and you wouldn't mind, it'd be great to get, some more stuff out there. And And also, I guess there's some magical algorithm at Amazon that if you had 100 reviews, that things really blow up and create some more acceleration. And again, this is all about increasing adoption in enterprises. And I think what we have to do is make this super ordinary and boring, and creating just consistent language, common process. So anything that we can do together to do that, I'm all for. So I think that's it for me. Should I introduce Balaji? And I know Balaji, you'll do a great job introducing yourself. I love your glasses, Balaji. I mean, Balaji and I are both big fans of JMM glasses, and so they're awesome. But I just wanted, I know Balaji, you'll kind of give an update of what you're doing, but I just wanted, just say how grateful I am for you. We started this journey, I think, before I started Open Assembly, right? In the cafe in 2018. You and Steve and Diane, and we all started talking about what this could be and how it could come together. And then, the four of us would have these regular conversations for a long time, before COVID hit. And then, John Healy was kind enough to join and had the suggestion of, let's make this public, instead of having this little group that talks about stuff on a regular basis. And here we are today, and there's, 50 people on the call, 48 people on the call today, but 4,000 people have come to the calls over the last couple of years. So just super honored to be a part of a community there's so much love and support, and finding ways to usher in a new age of work that can be great for workers and good for companies, and having platforms facilitate that. So today, Balaji is going to really dive in, with all his awesome work at Deloitte that I had a privilege of documenting over a couple of years with Mike Tushman. And really, what's going to take for platforms to really serve enterprises, and some of the things he's learned in his research. So Balaji, over to you, my man. Thanks so much for being here.
John, I think, all of us are here, because in many ways because of you. And I think your ability to amplify stories that work and to help people that are figuring their ways out in this big industry, I think we're all thankful for you. So it's John, the other John. It's less of a bromance, it's more of a group hug where John is right in the center, and we have to, at some point, we have to all do a visit to Mexico and hang out and go surfing, which basically means that we're all at the beach, and then, John is surfing like a 15-year-old like he does usually. But we have to do that. But John, this is all about this. This community exists because of you, and that case study exists because of you. There are too many things that we have to be thankful to you for.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hey, one note to everybody. I'm going to have to jump off here in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but I got to go give a speech. But I know Balaji's got it handled, and if he gets off track, then I know Steve or Jeff's going to keep him back on track. So thanks, Balaji, for being here.
Awesome. So a little bit of background, and I think I know a few of you, but I don't know most of you. I just left Deloitte after spending 20 years there, spent most of my time doing strategy, innovation consulting work for our large clients, and then started something called Deloitte Pixel, which is about figuring out how do we innovate and change the word professional at Deloitte? How do we bring in people that are not truly employees of Deloitte to serve our clients and to solve problems? Which scaled, and which, we did everything from crowdsourcing to freelancing to, in the end, I was responsible for organizing all of our non-employee workforce, which was a pretty significant workforce. So I've had the vantage point to see all sources of non-employees, and then I can contextualize for what freelance marketplaces do work and what they don't work. And if we do want to see open talent platforms win, one of the ways, of course, is for them to do more work that open talent platforms are designed for. The other way is to take share from alternatives like contingent firms, staffing firms, employees, and others. And we really have to think about how companies think about open talent platforms. Where do they work, and where do they not work? There'll be a little bit of a reality check here today to see what's working and what's not working. And I'm going to pause at every slide to just have a conversation with you so that we can all evolve something that works not only for us as people, but also all all the employees around the world, that in some way, all the people around the world that are depending on these platforms for their livelihood. I think we have a responsibility to get this thing right and get this thing better. Just as a STEM grad, I need to start with equations. This is just the most basic way of thinking about how marketplaces work, because I'm going to break up each of the components today. We just want to focus on the price and volume aspects of it. Nothing fancy about it. It's very simple. FAC here, I think of it as freelancer acquisition cost and client acquisition cost, which is pretty standard metrics. But let's talk about what's going well and what's not going well in this business. Can you all see my screen well?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to quickly run through a couple of them, but I want to pause there to see if you reflect on since the time that you started participating in this movement, either as a freelancer or as a company serving freelancers and clients, or as a client, what have you seen change or improve over the last few years? The first thing is there is a clear trend for individuals seeking independence. Since I quit Deloitte a few weeks back, I have been thinking hard about how not to be an employee again. And then the second thing that I'm also thinking about, how not to be a CEO again, so that I can have a semblance of work-life balance, which means the best answer there is to be independent. And I think there are millions of people, of course, as you know, that are thinking similarly about how to stay independent and still have the best of the both worlds. The second is there is, compared to the freelancing platforms, open talent platforms, the ecosystem around serving freelancers has scaled faster than the matching companies. Like, for example, deal.com to bank serving freelancers, payment systems serving freelancers. They've scaled way faster than the talent matching companies, which are our open talent platforms. There is pretty high interest from the Fortune 500, which is where I have skills. I don't have much of expertise to talk about almost a C2C or an individual to individual transactions. I know more about how Fortune 500 companies use really high skilled resources. Okay, so just look at this from that lens. And if this doesn't make sense for an Upwork or a freelancer.com, my apologies in advance. Second is, there is, in the adjacent spaces, there's significant scale and market share shift, which is a type of activity which used to happen in an employee format has significantly moved towards the non-employee format, or the gig or open talent format. Happened extremely well. We don't see that happening as much. We've seen that happening as much with independent talent. We haven't seen the shift towards marketplace as much, towards technology mediation as much. We haven't seen enough share moving from the personal connections market to the marketplace matching market. Lots of companies are being founded in this space. So there's a lot of attempts at the goal. The strong revenue growth from good companies in the technology space, some pretty stable companies. There's, I think, from an adoption or movement of market share, there's really strong adoption in the graphic design, content writing, web development. If anybody in the world is thinking about these, they at least consider freelancing marketplaces as a way to go. We have to get there for most of them. The point in which there'll be a shift is when it is very logical now that you have to go to these places to get work done. Like, you don't think about calling a taxi company when you're going somewhere. You think about a ride-sharing company of some sort. I think freelancing marketplaces have done the best job of connecting global talent to global companies better than any other situation. The last thing is there's a lot of contractors, freelance companies that have driven generative AI. We just don't talk about it enough. All of the human feedback is being driven by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of contractors and freelancers that drive that work. OpenAI can claim that it has hundreds of employees, but it uses tens of thousands of contractors in the back end to get this work done. So I want to pause there to see if anybody has any additional perspectives on what's working, what's evolved in the last couple of years.
Feel free to.
Balaji, I'll speak up on this. In that, I think one of the other areas, and we talked about this in the group chat before we got into the big room is the services that are available within the freelance marketplace has really jumped up and shifted, whether it's the benefits that are available to people in the US, that is a significant change. The shift in the learning and development marketplace that's giving access to people. And then I would also put the migration to the skills-based economy as another one of those elements that to me is opening up opportunity, where I think things are maybe not working. And Glenn, you could certainly offer some challenges where it is working maybe a little bit better in Europe, is the collective voice and the willingness of the group to come together and to influence legislative positions that are either enhancing or limiting the opportunity for growth in the marketplace.
Perfect. Let's talk a little bit about, what's not working.
Okay. We have one more hand up, Balaji. Sorry, Lisa.
Oh, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Yeah, appreciating the landscape and the details provided here. I would say we had a brief conversation about the future of work when we were in our breakout, and the idea of the expectations for upskilling and micro-credentialing and what that looks like in terms of platforms and accessibility. I've been using Zoom since 2017, and the idea of onboarding as well from either a hybrid, a remote, or on-site perspective, I think are also kind of shifts that we've seen towards being more common. And some organizations also acknowledging the fact that some individuals may take their skills into whether it's consulting in addition to their full-time role or in general.
Makes sense. Thank you. I think, yeah, whenever I hear problems about in the space and evolution, I always see opportunities that somebody has to start a company to serve that. Right. So what isn't? I think the obvious ones are most large platforms are not profitable. Some are, but most of them are not profitable. Second is, even the bigger companies like Upwork are in their early stages with enterprise. Only 7% of Upwork's revenue comes from the enterprise. They only have about 5 customers that pay them more than $10 million. It just means that their sales and marketing costs for each of those transactions, which, by the way, for Upwork are like $4,900 per individual transaction is their average. It's too time consuming. It's too expensive to sell those projects unless you have a better enterprise account strategy and, really solve problems in the industry. Second is, because of the transaction by transaction nature of this business, it's very unattractive to the VC market. VCs love to have annual recurring revenue, and it is very difficult to have that conversation with freelance marketplaces. So and typically why you need VC funding is you take that money and then you buy the market share from your customers. So that, and then you create that flywheel so that people then once they're satisfied after you bought it, you can increase prices a little bit and then get back to profitability. Freelance marketplaces have rarely had that opportunity, except a few companies here and there that picked up some VC funding. Most of them have not. In the last 10 years or so, there have been limited share gains from the staffing industry. While that industry still grows at 4%, and the freelance marketplace industry is growing at about 15%, it's still the size of these two marketplaces is so significantly different. It hasn't changed that much. But I think the largest share gains that haven't happened is actually from the personal connections channel. Anybody that charges more than a couple of $100 an hour rarely uses the marketplace, which means that if getting to that customer, or at least that talent pool, has a higher average unit price, and also has more longevity, but also once they join the platform, find their client, both client and the freelancer have very limited incentive to keep the transaction on the platform. And I think, some of these are, of course, the regulated landscape keeps changing. There's a lot of headwinds, and each of the CEOs on the call and each of the teams on the call, it's a yeoman's work to keep pushing and making these changes happen. So I appreciate all of the work that you do.
We have a hand up from Jeff.
Hey guys. Yeah. These are the stats, and it's funny because I just was asked to comment more from a totally different aspect, but brought this whole conversation into that comment on LinkedIn. The original conversation was from a guy who runs a software company that helps EORs. It's all the technology that makes it incredibly efficient for staffing agencies and EORs to process. And the conversation was online open talent systems are growing at 5 times the rate of traditional staffing. And so there was this whole idea of staffing agencies should bring on more technology to be more efficient, like staffing platforms. What I've commented was staffing platforms are starting to realize that in order to go through the front door of large enterprises, and I mean like the proper channels to get the 6-month, 12-month, typical 40-hour bigger engagements versus the small bite-sized engagements that they're doing right now, they actually got to change that disruptive mindset. And they also have to think more like a services business, which I know nobody on the call, because we're talking about technology, wants to accept or realize. But I've, over the years, found that you're getting better in technology to corral people and get more efficient, but the algos don't do that last mile of fit for culture, some of the soft stuff. And that's what large enterprises need for the larger real engagements, let's call it, where majority of the spend is. And so you're starting to see partnerships with the platforms that are with MSPs, VMSs, traditional contingent workforce management solutions in order to do that. And so that's kind of some of the
Makes
thoughts.
sense, Jeff. Appreciate it. Yeah, and we'll talk about it. I just want to hear other points of view, and then I'll go back to responding to some of your statements. Mahmood, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for actually what you said is super relevant on what happened to us, because my company started as a marketplace connecting companies with SMEs with independent management consultants, and we had a huge volume of projects posted, but closing was super hard because we had to spend a lot of resources in order to close these projects. So we had to do the project scoping, the proposals, and before we hand out to the consultants on our platform. So one of our clients came that time and he said, well, I love that you provided the consultants, but actually I have my own consultants, but I need a platform that simplifies working with these consultants. So that's the time we pivoted to a SaaS model, and we've been growing since then. So the biggest challenges that I've seen, as you mentioned, we are right now a non-talent matching company. It's kind of like similar to Deal, but we have the workflow element that allows companies to adapt this model on more traditional functions like consultancy, associates, other functions, not only remote workers. But we've seen, however, like certain resistance in the market, which I want to know, like, what's your perspective on? We've seen a lot of traditional businesses in retail and manufacturing, and they still heavily rely on staffing agencies, even though like it's 1,000 times cheaper and more efficient adapting to a platform like us. We've served right now a manufacturing company that they're gonna use our platform. They are an outlier, like super outlier, by adapting the service that we provide. So just want to have your perspective on that.
Yeah,
it's really
and I'll get back to you for sure. And I think those are good thoughts to see all the pivots that different companies are making to address, or at least continue to serve their clients. Rich, good to see you, brother.
I think one of the big ones we deal with enterprise, and most companies don't have a category for open talent, right? In terms of, you think about contingent talent, there's a category for MSP, like Jeff was saying, MSP VMSs or services spend. And I think the challenge that a lot of open talent platforms have is, do you want to decide to go through the MSP and work through the VMS and work at a sliding scale margin and deal with that, and deal with the fact that you might not have line manager contact, but you'll have gig flow? Or you want to change your business into be more of a services business and targeting that SOW and actually competing with the likes of the big consultancy. You know, for me, that's a decision. Most staffing companies made that decision 10 years ago. In open talent, there isn't a category for open talent. So we need to decide what one is it, right? And it's and hopefully in 4 or 5 years' time, and with what John's book's doing, I'm giving John's book to every procurement department that will listen, by the way. But you know, try to get them to think about this category differently. But at the moment, contingent and open talent is still seen as the same thing. I think that's a big issue with the enterprise. I don't have an answer for that, but that's one of the big issues at the moment.
Appreciate it. Siddharth?
Hey, Balaji, nice presentation so far. So on Rich's point as well, actually, I think enterprises aren't sure where open talent marketplaces sit within their contingent workforce program. A lot of them have been outsourced to MSPs, and even MSPs are trying to figure out how to fit in marketplaces to help their clients. So they're looking at partnerships, which obviously makes the engagement model a lot more complex, right? It adds margins on top of margins and makes it more expensive, which essentially works against the idea of reducing costs. And every company also requires different engagement models, right? So every company has a different hiring model, a different way that they work with their workers internally as well. So it gets super complicated for marketplaces to then figure that out, set up the engagement model with each of these different companies, and then also maintain those engagement models to the degree or to the quality that the companies expect. So that's that makes everything a lot more complicated.
I'm totally with you. And I think these are good problems. And let's spend a little bit of time just talking about on two metrics. I think just at a high level on price, and how do you increase the unit rate that you're charging your clients, and then the other one is we'll spend a little bit more time on volumes. The one thing, just from I want to have like specific conversation on these topics, is one is take rate. The take rates work great. Like where Upworks is 14% is, I think their take rate. TopTels is probably 25 to 30%, but based on all the services that they provide in terms of vetting and stuff. But I think where the problem happens with that is it's the value prop post search. What is the value prop of maintaining and paying you that margin post the second project, post third project? And I think there has to be a stronger value prop that marketplaces have to realize, so that the transaction then doesn't get disintermediated, and then it becomes a one-on-one IC conversation, or it goes to an MBO or somebody else. That there are so many companies that want YouTube marketplaces to find that person, and then after that they want to take it over from there. And I think I haven't seen a good solution for maintaining that reason for clients and companies and freelancers to stay on the marketplace on a sustainable basis. So that's one thing I think would love to talk about. Second is, I think international pools, companies like Andela and others have done some great job with building pools, and not only in terms of building pools, but it is actually training, certifying, actually taking a step back from just being matching to say, I'm going to create pools, not just identify pools, but create pools and train them, so that when you say you need a ton of AWS engineers or OpenAI prompt engineers, they don't exist. I'm going to go train them, which from an identity of the marketplace perspective, where your role is to match talent, it's beyond that role. So you have to think about what your reason, like your identity itself, to say, do I want to make that choice or not? A lot of problems here I hear are really tough problems. Everything that you guys mentioned, there are limiting adoption, compliance, and all of these things. Solving those problems is the primary way to get to scale. Like, I love the example of Deal that scaled what, couple of $100 million in revenue, not even in GSV, in a couple of years. They tackle the really thorny issues of global locations, setting up offices in each of them, setting up legal entities in each of them, understanding nuance level of legal concerns with each of them. And once, literally, when they had issues in the market by regulators actually called out, their clients were like, they're doing a service to us, you should back off. I just feel the freelancing marketplaces have not really tackled the tough problems around compliance, around global issues. A lot of times when I'm using a freelancer sitting somewhere, it's like, you just pay me, I just pay them, and just assume everything is perfect. And if you want to include some worker classification up front, it's like, oh, it's going to take 2 months to do it, or it's going to take weeks to do it. I just feel that if there's this sector scale is contingent on solving the tough problems and not building models around them and ignoring the systemic issues that exist. And then I think there's a couple of other things around, higher value propositions. And again, if you solve those tough problems, you get two things. One is it's extremely sticky because individual platforms to solve those problems become preferred. Right now, there is no preferred marketplace of companies. Everybody wants to use everybody else, or at least it's like, I need 10 companies. And the second thing is, take rates as well, is there hasn't been much consolidation in the market. There's a company here, Andela buying somebody, or Gigster buying somebody, but there is no real consolidation. And I think as and when there's more consolidation in the market and people can actually invest in solving these problems, we're looking for cherry picking the low-hanging fruit versus significantly eating into either the staffing firms or significantly eating into the personal connections market. Those are big problems to be solved. I don't see any hands up, which is a problem. So come on, people. Tell me, what do you think are the systemic issues that are preventing scale? Jeff, go ahead.
You called me out, Balaji. Yeah, you're right. I find, and now that I'm in the technology business versus the services business, and working with technology founders as my co-founders, the mindset is, let's get to market as quick as possible and frictionless, and not solving those key things that can help accelerate your business from a sales perspective. So you mentioned compliance. That's a big one. If you want to walk through the front door at a Fortune 100 business, the first thing they're going to ask the platforms is, what's your compliance look like? And is everybody an IC, or do you W-2 or T4 or wherever, do you employ both sides? And if you can't answer that question satisfactorily with deep knowledge, you're probably not going to get far with the larger enterprises, right? And so that's just one of the issues. But that whole idea of let's just get it to market quick is sometimes problematic, right? For adoption on a wider scale. For clients that aren't as savvy, they'll jump on because they just need a body, right? And they don't know the longer term repercussions.
Yeah, and I think the biggest, just to summarize what I feel as the issues, and specifically in the talent marketplaces issues, there's an expectation that clients have to change to use them, versus the most successful companies move to where the clients are and solve the problems where they are, and then over a period of time make the transition and then kind of take them along. Versus if you say, this is my model, you are stupid not to use us, that value proposition has to be phenomenal for them to change. And right now it is good, but it isn't phenomenal for them to change to get to you. Robert, go ahead. You're on mute, Robert.
Problem number one. I'm on the talent side of this, and I've done some working inside of the networks before. but coming at it from the talent side, it's the reliability, both on the client side and on the talent side. Like both sides struggle in that when you are trying to do purely an open talent environment, right? What's my predictability as a client that you're going to be that my talent is going to be there tomorrow? And what's my predictability as an income that this network can support me over that time period? We haven't gotten to the Uber environment, right, where you can almost predict that if you drive X amount of time, you're going to make X amount of money. There's always, what's the word I would say here? You always have a few breakouts in that, kind of on the upper and lower side, right? But when you kind of look at the middle of it, I think it's really difficult for people to have that predictability. And that's where the struggle I see is, and everybody I talk to that works in these networks.
I'm with you. And I think one of the things is there's no visibility to demand for marketplaces. And that visibility to that demand also then signals to the individual freelancer or the contractor that there is work. Like you have no clue that there is work that exists. Even the freelance marketplaces have no clue how much work exists within the company. And I think there has to be greater thought into identifying those signals, providing APIs to clients to say, I want to connect into where you see the signal of somebody that you need so that I can prepare something better for you, versus when I realize that I don't have an employee, I don't have a contractor, then I'll look for a freelancer and then I'll raise the signal. It's very painful for everybody in the system. Sorry, Corey, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the scalability issue in the open talent and in this world is that, this whole market, it's a very red ocean, right? And I think it has been for a number of years. And so when you talk about scale within the confines of a red ocean, you got to talk about like defensibility of your company and of your marketplace. And I haven't and I think that open talent, that the freelancer world is kind of due for some large scale shift in what it means to structure and organize. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen in quite a while like a truly defensible marketplace come up. And you had mentioned it before, the way that they usually do scale is go buy the market share, dump hundreds of millions in advertising and branding to win that market share to get in. But overall, at the end of the day, even if you look at, TopTal, Upwork, all of these, there's not really defensible tech and or differentiation there. They've just got the spend, they've got the pockets to keep pushing it. And I think that there's huge room for opportunity right now to find out what that kind of thing is going to be. And I don't know what it is, but I think that there is going to be some big shift that really will launch some things in the future.
I mean, it clearly isn't the volume of your talent, for sure. We know that already. So I think it is. I believe it is in tech, but it's surprisingly freelance marketplaces beyond the matching platform itself is very basic. No real skills taxonomy, no real integrations into the company. Anytime any VMS conversation comes up, they're like, we're not going to connect into VMS, because there's this notion that you constantly have to differentiate between a freelancer open talent marketplace versus staffing marketplace. When that person is on the team, there is no goddamn difference between these two. And it's like this hand waving that this is completely different is one of the reasons this is struggling. That product manager does not care if the person comes from a marketplace or comes from, they met them at a in a meetup, or they're from a staffing firm. They don't care.
Hey, Balaji, just real quick, you got 5 minutes and I got 2 more charts. I just want to make sure we don't miss out on some of that. It's a good conversation,
Bob,
but I want to make sure we don't.
Thanks, Steve.
Bob, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that last point, Balaji. I just feel like perception changes how people approach this. There's obviously friction in terms of how to navigate the inner workings of an organization, especially if, your staffing is done through, a vendor management team that's not part of human resources. So nobody has the right sort of lens, and nobody thinks, puts on their systems thinking hat and thinks about, look, I've got a project, I've got a product, I've got something to build, and I'm going to find the best people for the task, regardless of their legal or contractual affiliation. And just like recruitment marketing would, hand their recs to a programmatic advertising, platform and push out these job ads to all these different places, and just basically spray and pray and hope the right people see it and apply before we take the job down. It shouldn't matter. I mean, you can track sources of where you found these and find the most effective paths. And so, the marketplaces have gotten so fragmented, and we also don't measure, talent the same depending on each, sort of talent pool or each source. So when are we going to get to the point where we can do, this dynamic, orchestrate a dynamic talent ecosystem if we're so worried about all these essentially artificial, and in some cases, emotional, inhibitors to not caring about certain things. If you care about soft skills, you should care about the soft skills of everybody on the team. Don't just worry about the specific skills or accreditation that they have or whatever. But every platform asks for different information. None of them do a good job matching, giving me recommendations, and it should not take someone to manually oversee and say, "Hey, Bob, did you see this job?" I'm like, yeah, I saw it. I've never done that, and I have no skills that align to that project. So what were you thinking, right? Like I don't know why we're not getting our matching systems, two-way matching systems doing a much better job, because I can only imagine what would happen if you did this in the, like for a Department of Labor at the state level, or even, the federal level. I mean, this inefficiency is just killing everybody.
Yeah, and then I think the typical response to that is clients don't give us enough information in their intake, so we don't have enough information, so they throw us garbage and we throw garbage back. Yes, that problem has existed forever, but unless you connect systems, you'll never solve that solution. Unless you connect into the demand system, whether that is Slack or Jira, wherever that is, and what is the context of the project, what is the context of skills, nobody should type that in somewhere. That's what we're expecting from people on both ends of it. Credentialing should happen automatically on the supply side, and demand signal and clarity should happen from the systems inside the company. So I agree. I think there's a set of problems that I think that just have kept the marketplaces to lower than scale that they should be at. Anna, go ahead.
Well, we're talking about issues, and you mentioned that the volumes, some of us mentioned that the volume is not actually the key. I was lucky enough to discover a new marketplace that is on the rise. It's a Finnish company called Hashlist, and their model is interesting. Not only that they don't go as wide in terms of skills, they're really focused on one industry, automotive. And it seems they're doing a pretty good job, as I've learned that they're growing, and they got the second round of investors, and their business model is based on a subscription. Like, you become part of their network as a client, you pay a subscription, and you have access to whatever you need. And then the AI behind is able to suggest profiles based on the requirements that you put in. And then you can work with that person as a freelance, or if you want to take it onto the team, you can do that as well. So it's an interesting shift that I saw compared to what I know already, Crossover Marketplace, Gigster Marketplace, or the bigger names like Upwork and so on, is that they went really focusing on one industry, and they provided that flexibility in terms of you can take the people when you want on a small project, you can then hire them, but all the time, at any point, you have access to my platform because you pay a subscription. And I've seen a lot of clients coming in. I continue to be in touch with them and consult them in things, but it's an interesting shift. And I found it pretty refreshing due to this focus on a technology or an industry per se.
I'm with you. I think that's going back to what Corey was saying about creating something defensible versus replicating the same marketplace construct in multiple skills. I think there's a point. Brendan, how much time do we have? Do I have time for a couple more questions, or do you need to?
I'm good here. If anyone wants to stay and keep chatting, I know people are starting to bounce out for their top of the hour meetings, which is understandable. But if you have time, Balaji, let's just stay. And
okay, I have time.
Yeah.
I don't got a job, so I can stay. Go ahead, Mahmood.
All right, thanks so much. I just want to mention one thing regarding like the marketplaces are. I believe that they are two layers business. Like they are service providers at top at first, and then a technology company on second, in my opinion. They just provide a staffing service powered by technology. That's how I would describe talent marketplaces. And because of that, you will always have a second, you need as a company working with these marketplaces, a second layer of vetting. If you don't have a second layer of vetting, and it wouldn't serve you as, it wouldn't be like successful engagement for a very long term. And that's why I have a super, a big curiosity why companies not utilize the process in procurement when they have an approved vendors internally. They go through all this RFQ process to approve this vendor to finally have the ability to engage on a long-term contract with the service providers from procurement perspective, but not do it with why not do it with talent, with contractors, with freelancers? I feel like it's a two-sided responsibility, and I understand why companies doesn't have this as a common practice yet, because the freelancer talent marketplaces comes to them, no, we pre-vetted these people, they are ready, they are the 1% of blah blah blah, and because of this messaging, it hints like I truly believe it hints a different kind of expectation from the client perspective, that this guy, I'm just gonna one click, he's done, he's ready. All I have to do is onboarding. But in reality, there's always have to be a vetting input and vetting process from the client perspective in order to double check these talent. And that's why the future of open talent, I truly believe, it's an internal VMS, like an internal platform that does the procurement solution, the procurement process exactly, but for contract talent on a bigger scale. And internal managers will have this already vetted, already onboarded, already engaged with your brand as a company, and have all the value matching processes to be hired on demand. I just want to know like your take on this. Do you see like this is relevant, or?
It depends on the scale of the company, right? Let's say if I'm hiring every year 25 to 30,000 people, which is contractors, which means in every month I'm probably hiring 2,000-3,000 people. Again, if you look at the breadth of, take a pharmaceutical company, you'll be looking at the range of all of those skills, your ability to create that talent pool that you can dip into. Every company at that scale typically says wherever the talent is, we're going to go. If that is an internal vetted pool, we'll go there first. Maybe you can stage gate it to say, first finish here because it's the fastest, it's the easiest. And then you can go a little bit more outside to your existing vendors that are already contracted with. And then you can go outside to the completely open talent where you have to go figure out a little bit more. I think that stage gate makes sense, but at that scale, they'll need all sources.
Just follow-up questions. So as of current practices, do you see companies adapting to this? Or do you see like more companies in certain industry adapting to this model, or they still have this expectation from marketplaces?
I mean, Jeff Schwartz is here, and Brandon, you've done a bunch of work. I see, at least from my vantage point, the share of external/contingent spend to marketplaces has only barely improved a little bit. I think it was low single digits in the last 5 years. Maybe it's gone up to 6 or 7%. 90% of all work in large companies for external talent comes from staffing firms. Jeff, any points there? Jeff Schwartz. I know there's lots of Jeffs here.
I would add two things. I do think that it comes from staffing firms. The other thing which we haven't talked about is, I think in the last year, there has been an accelerated shift towards sort of what's been called skills-based organizations. And I think as part of that, look, I work with Gloat. We're an internal talent marketplace and a skills analytics platform. With internal talent marketplaces, increasingly companies are setting up their own internal gig markets.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, of course, is that the internal gig market, project market, is separate from the external project and gig market. I mean, one is run by procurement or IT, and the other is run by HR and sometimes business leaders. So I think that's an interesting bridge to look at on the demand side. My sense is that over the next couple of years, that internal demand is going to become better structured as companies begin to look at skills and projects more than they look at jobs and job requisitions. And I think we're right in the middle of that. And again, we could have a whole hour just on that, Balaji. So if I'm thinking about what's going on inside companies, this switch to a focus on skills and projects and work versus a focus on sort of jobs and full-time positions and finding people to fill them is a major shift going on. I think that there's something there that will help us understand this demand piece that I think is shifting inside companies and enterprises.
I'm totally with you. Let's there's Lisa with her hand up. Just want to hear Lisa, and then we can close the call. I'm free. I have a lot of time, given that I am completely super interestingly unemployed. So please reach out, find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and then I'm happy to chat anytime. I love distractions when I'm painting my sketches, so I'm ready anytime. Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'll be brief. Yeah, I think the trends are interesting here in the patterns and thinking about if, for example, the idea of individuals interviewing for an organization versus interviewing for a particular role. I've heard of one kind of future work aspect. So cultural overall fit in terms of, oh, this person, aligns with our mission and goals. We'll then build a role around them or feel that they'll fit well with this team rather than saying, this particular role only is what we want to consider you for. So I found that to be an interesting pattern or aspect that I've heard of recently.
Yeah, I think redeployment or just understanding, when you see talent and connecting with that with other roles is just extremely inefficient in the open talent marketplaces. The number of contractors that get redeployed onto other projects is less than 10%. Every new project goes out to sourcing every time. And I think, going back to what Mahmood was saying, I think the first source that they have to look for is people that are already staffed on other projects before looking at the internally vetted source, and then then start sourcing. It's literally all the projects first start getting sourced, and it is extremely inefficient for everybody, including the contractors that are sitting for weeks in the middle between projects waiting to get staffed on the next one. So I think there's a lot of some low-hanging fruits to solve for, but lots of more systemic issues to solve. But Brandon, do you want to close it off? I appreciate everybody staying on for the fun conversation.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Balaji, thank you for your valuable time. Much appreciated. So we'll have this recording up in the next 24 hours or so. It'll be on our blog. You'll get notification about it. Reminder, February 15th, UST case study with Chris Stanton from Harvard Business School. And we've got some other good stuff coming up in March. Rich, when did I tap you for your research review?
22nd, I think.
Okay, yeah. He'll be playing golf, but he's still gonna present. So look forward to that one. Thanks everybody. If you ever need anything from me, just reach out, brandon@open-assembly.com, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next call. Take care.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.